Welcome to Whispers and Confessions. There might be a twist waiting, so please make sure to watch until the end. Don't forget to subscribe and like. Let's begin right away.
I am Dominic, 35 years old, and my wife Sophia is 33. Our neighbors, Jared and Kimberly, are 28 and 33 respectively. On a quiet weekend morning, I was lounging on the sofa, listening to the muffled conversations coming from the apartment next door. Laughter suddenly echoed through the wall, and I let out a sigh. This noise had become a tiresome part of our everyday life. "They're at it again," Sophia said, peeking out from the kitchen, wearing an apron and holding a sponge covered in suds. "Yeah, they're noisy today too. It was the same last night. I'm thinking of filing a complaint with management." Sophia paused her dishwashing and joined me in the living room, her expression curious. "I actually saw them yesterday. Several young women were going in. And today, I saw a group of men too. What do you think they're up to? Are people really coming and going that much?" Sophia moved to the window and peeked through the blinds. "Look, someone else just arrived." I stood and joined her at the window. Sure enough, two young men stood at the neighbor's door, one in a suit, the other casually dressed. They knocked and were quickly invited inside. "What's going on over there? Why don't you just go ask them directly?" "Yeah, I'm curious too. Plus, if we're going to live here long term, it'd be good to at least introduce ourselves." I hesitated but realized Sophia was right. We'd been married for 5 years and moved here 6 months ago, yet we hadn't even greeted the neighbors. "All right, I'll go." Standing outside their door, I could hear multiple voices inside, laughter and snippets of conversation. Taking a deep breath to steady my nerves, I rang the doorbell. The noise quieted for a moment, followed by the sound of footsteps. When the door opened, I was greeted by an unexpected sight. A woman in her early 30s stood there with shoulder-length brown hair, large eyes, and a warm smile. Her clothes, however, looked hastily thrown on. Her blouse was buttoned unevenly, and her skirt was slightly askew. "Oh, are you from next door?" she asked. "Yes, we moved in 6 months ago. I'm Dominic." She smiled, tucking her hair behind her ear. "I'm Kimberly. Were we being noisy? I'm so sorry." Her apology seemed genuine, but her casual tone suggested she was used to noise complaints. A male voice called out from inside. "Who is it?" "It's the neighbor," Kimberly replied. A young man appeared behind her, his shirt untucked on one side and his hair slightly messy. "Hello, I'm Jared. Sorry if we've been disturbing you. We're actually hosting some counseling sessions." "Counseling sessions?" Kimberly smiled and explained. "Yes, we provide marriage counseling mostly for couples who feel their relationships have grown distant." Jared chimed in. "It's more of a hobby we've picked up, but word of mouth has made it popular." Their explanation left me puzzled. They seemed like a couple, but something about their dynamic felt off. They stood apart, with Kimberly slightly turned away from Jared. "If you'd like, you and your wife could join us. It doesn't matter if you're having issues or are just curious." I was momentarily at a loss for words. My relationship with Sophia wasn't bad, but after 5 years of marriage, our spark had undeniably dimmed. "I'll talk to my wife about it." Jared nodded. "The next session is tomorrow at 7 p.m. Feel free to stop by if you're interested." When I returned home, Sophia greeted me at the door, her expression brimming with curiosity. "So, how'd it go?" "They're running marriage counseling sessions specifically for couples who feel their relationships have grown cold." Sophia's eyes lit up. "Should we go tomorrow night? We're not cold, but it could be fun to try something new." "Really?" "Yeah, just out of curiosity." "So it's settled. Tomorrow at 7, right?" I was surprised by her enthusiasm. Sophia usually avoided new social situations. Later that night, as we were getting ready for bed, Sophia brought it up again. "I've been thinking, our relationship has felt a bit routine lately." "You think so?" "Yeah, and I thought this might be a chance to learn something new." I sat beside her, reflecting. It was true, daily life had blurred the lines between being partners and spouses. The next evening, when I returned from work, Sophia had already gotten ready. She was dressed with extra care and wore a hint of perfume. When the time came, We knocked on the neighbor's door. Kimberly greeted us warmly, looking more put together than the day before. "Welcome. Please come in." Inside, several couples were already seated in a spacious living room arranged with sofas and cushions in a circle. The walls were adorned with psychology books and relationship charts. Jared approached us, smiling. "Thanks for coming. Tonight, we'll start with introductions and then move on to the workshop." We joined the circle, and as the introductions began, the challenges faced by each couple slowly emerged: lack of communication due to busy schedules, clashes over differing values, or simply the loss of passion. When it was our turn, Sophia started first. "We don't have any major problems, but after 5 years, we thought it might be good to add a little excitement." The other couples nodded in understanding. As the workshop began, Jared and Kimberly discussed the importance of communication in relationships. However, their explanation gradually took an unexpected turn. "Reviving a relationship often requires stepping outside the usual routine," Jared said. "By breaking free from the monotony of everyday life and discovering new sides of each other, relationships can be revitalized. Today, we'll try a simple trust exercise." He pulled out a set of blindfolds. One partner wears a blindfold while the other guides them, but only through touch, without speaking. I glanced at Sophia, who looked intrigued but slightly apprehensive. Moments later, the lights dimmed, and Kimberly's soothing voice filled the room. "Let's begin." Following the instructions, we put on the blindfolds and started moving under our partner's guidance. But soon, something seemed strange. The sounds around us blended together, making it impossible to distinguish who was guiding whom. Suddenly, I felt a hand on my shoulder, definitely not Sophia's. The touch was warm and firm, moving confidently from my shoulder to my arm, and eventually encircling my wrist. It was unmistakably different from Sophia's smaller, cooler hands. Just as I was about to say something, a voice whispered close to my ear, "Stay quiet. This is part of the trust exercise." I froze in confusion. It was Kimberly. "In this workshop, we intentionally blur boundaries to help you confront your own feelings," she explained softly. Even with the blindfold on, I could sense the atmosphere in the room shifting. Breaths grew heavier, mingled with subdued laughter and murmurs. Kimberly's voice guided me further. "We're going up the stairs. Take your time." "All right," I responded hesitantly, feeling her hand on my back as she led me upward. Her perfume lingered close, adding to the strange experience. As we entered another space, the texture underfoot shifted to the softness of carpet. "Let's pause here for a moment," Kimberly said, her tone gentle yet commanding. When I reached to remove the blindfold, her hand stopped me. "Not yet. Trust is the theme tonight. Don't worry about Sophia. She's having her own experience, just like you." Her words sparked unease. Who was guiding Sophia? Jared? Or someone else? "Please, sit down," Kimberly urged. I hesitated, realizing this had gone far beyond a simple trust exercise. "I'm sorry, but this..." Feeling apprehensive, Kimberly's voice was calm yet persistent. "New experiences can be uncomfortable, but growth comes from facing that discomfort." I took a deep breath, trying to steady myself. This situation felt entirely wrong. "I need to find Sophia," I said firmly. "Let me take off the blindfold." After a pause, Kimberly relented. "Of course." As I removed the blindfold, it took a moment for my vision to adjust to the light. I found myself in a small studio space, furnished with a cozy sofa and a large mirror. But Sophia was nowhere in sight. "Where is Sophia?" I demanded. Kimberly stood by the window, her expression calm but laced with challenge. "She's in the next room," Kimberly replied. "Shall I bring her? Or are you going to let this opportunity pass?" Her words carried an unsettling ambiguity. Taking a step closer, she added, "This workshop is unconventional. One reason relationships stagnate is the absence of novelty. We offer experiences that break that monotony." Her explanation made everything click. This wasn't counseling, it was something far more unconventional. "Bring Sophia here, now," I said firmly. Kimberly exhaled softly. "All right." but you'll need to open the door yourself." She gestured toward the hallway. Without hesitation, I left the room, determined to find Sophia. The corridor was lined with several closed doors, each concealing its own mystery. One by one, I began opening them, my heart pounding with urgency. The first room was empty. In the second room, I found a couple talking with their blindfolds off, looking startled as I entered. When I opened the third door, there they were, Sophia and Jared. Sophia was blindfolded, sitting on the sofa, while Jared stood nearby, speaking to her. Both were fully dressed, but Sophia's expression seemed uncertain. "Sophia," I shouted urgently, adding to the tension in the room. "Dominic, where are you?" Jared turned to me, his face showing a mix of embarrassment and surprise. "Oh, is it over already? We were just getting started." I rushed to Sophia and gently removed her blindfold. She blinked, her eyes adjusting to the light. "Where? What's going on here?" she asked. "Let's go, Sophia," I said, taking her hand. Her fingers felt cold and slightly shaky. Jared raised his hands in a defensive gesture. "Don't misunderstand us. We're just offering couples a new way to strengthen their bond." Without a word, Sophia stood, clutching my hand. We left the room and returned to Kimberly's, heading straight for the entrance. The living room was alive with activity, other couples engaged in what seemed to be various intimate exercises. Some of it was undeniably personal. Just before we could leave, Kimberly appeared behind us. "Leaving already? Isn't this what you wanted?" Her smile was warm, though tinged with a faint hint of disappointment and resignation. "I understand, but the door is always open if you change your mind." Without responding, we left the apartment. Back in our home, silence hung heavy in the air. Sophia stood by the window, gazing at the night outside. "Are you okay?" I asked after a moment. Slowly, she turned to face me. Her expression showed a mix of emotions. That was different from what I expected. "Yeah, it really was," I replied. She hesitated before speaking again, meeting my eyes directly. To be honest, there were parts of it I found interesting. Her candor caught me off guard, leaving me momentarily speechless. I never imagined Sophia would say something like that. "Of course, I didn't like being separated from you like that," she continued. "But the idea of trying something new." Her voice trailed off, leaving the thought unfinished. My emotions swirled, gratitude for her honesty mixed with a pang of jealousy and unease. "I just don't want to lose you," I said quietly. Sophia stepped closer, taking my hand in hers. "You won't lose me. That's why I want us to use this as a chance to reflect on our relationship." I exhaled deeply, her words resonating with me. In 5 years of marriage, the initial spark had inevitably dimmed. "But what happened tonight?" I began, before trailing off. Sophia nodded. "I'm not saying we go back there. I just think we could find new ways to grow together." I pulled her into a hug, her warmth and familiar scent grounding me. Later that night, lying in bed, we had one of the most heartfelt conversations we'd had in years. We talked about our relationship, the things that worked, the things that didn't, and what we hoped for in the future. For the first time in a long while, we connected on a deeper level. But just as I was drifting to sleep, unease crept in. Was what we experienced next door truly counseling? Or was it something else entirely? The next morning, as I headed out for work, I noticed an envelope at our door. Inside was a card and a key. The card read, "Welcome anytime. Next session starts at 8 p.m. on Friday. Kimberly and Jared, your hosts." I slipped the card and key into my pocket, unsure of what to make of it, and left for work without saying a word to Sophia. All day, the envelope and its contents lingered in my thoughts. A week passed, and during that time, something shifted between Sophia and me. Our conversations became more open, our connection more profound. The experience, strange as it was, had somehow brought us closer. We began sharing our feelings and desires with a newfound honesty that we hadn't had in years. Friday morning, while getting ready for work, Sophia suddenly asked, "Do you still have that key from the workshop?" Startled, I turned to see her calmly slicing toast for breakfast. "You knew about the key?" Sophia smiled faintly. "It fell out of your pocket when you came home." I just silently put it back in place. I was at a loss for words. Why hadn't she said anything? Are you planning to go there today? Her tone wasn't accusatory, but rather matter of fact. No, of course not. I wouldn't go to a place like that. Sophia put down the knife and turned toward me. To be honest, I've thought about it a little. Our relationship has improved since that night. Maybe there's something we can learn from that place. Her words took me by surprise. Since that strange experience, our conversations had grown deeper and our nights together were more passionate. But was it because of the counseling session at the neighbors? Or had we simply found a way to truly face each other? Do you really want to go? I asked, looking out the living room window. I'm curious. But if you don't want to, I won't go. We're a couple, so we should decide together. That day, Sophia's words lingered in my mind. She clearly wanted a new experience. Honestly, I couldn't stop thinking about that night either. Kimberly's smile, Jared's confident demeanor, and, most of all, the forbidden thrill I had felt in that room. On my way home from work, I made a decision. We would go one more time, but this time with conditions. We wouldn't separate, and if anything made us uncomfortable, we'd leave immediately. When I got home, Sophia had already finished work and was preparing dinner. Sophia, about that thing. She stopped what she was doing and turned to look at me. Let's go. But only if we stick together and promise to leave immediately if it feels strange. A bright smile spread across her face as she ran to hug me. Thank you, I promise. After dinner, we began to prepare. Sophia carefully applied makeup and chose an outfit slightly bolder than usual. I also put extra thought into what I wore. When the time came, we stood in front of the neighbor's door. Sophia held my hand tightly. I took out the key and unlocked the door. Once inside, the atmosphere felt different from before. In the living room, about 5 couples had gathered, and among them were some familiar faces. Kimberly approached us with a warm smile. You came. We're so glad. Jared followed, grinning. Tonight is a special session. The theme is communication and trust. I held Sophia's hand tightly. This time, we have conditions. We must always stay together. Is that okay? Kimberly and Jared exchanged glances. Of course, this workshop isn't mandatory. You only participate within your comfort zone. We sat down with the other couples as Jared began explaining the workshop. It was similar to before, but more detailed. One of the common problems many couples face is not being able to honestly share their hopes or desires. Tonight, let's explore those deep feelings in a safe environment. As the session progressed, we listened to other couples' stories. Most of them spoke about issues arising from long marriages' lack of communication, dissatisfaction with couple time, and boredom from monotony. These were things we had also experienced to some degree. Kimberly stood up and proposed a new activity. Next is the secret confession activity. Share a wish or desire you haven't been able to tell your partner until now. She began handing out small cards. First, don't write your name on the card. Then, we'll shuffle the cards and read them randomly. The anonymity will allow you to be more honest. Sophia and I received our cards. After a moment of thought, Sophia began writing something. I also wrote down my honest feelings. I want to surprise my wife more. I don't want to bore her. Once the cards were collected and shuffled, Kimberly began reading them aloud. Various wishes and desires were revealed. Some wanted more adventurous couple time, others wished for more affectionate words, and some even expressed bold desires, like inviting a third person into the relationship. I watched Sophia's reaction closely. She listened intently, her face serious, occasionally nodding slightly. While the cards were being read, I kept an eye out for the one I had written. At last, Kimberly read it aloud. I want to surprise my wife more. I don't want to bore her. Sophia turned to me, her eyes filled with a mix of surprise and warmth. She seemed to recognize it as mine. After all the cards were read, Jared addressed the group. Now, choose one wish that was shared and discuss with your partner which one you'd like to try. Sophia and I whispered to each other. I knew that was yours, she said. Really? What did you write? I asked. Shyly, she replied. I want to be free to make noise in a new place. Her honesty surprised me, but it also warmed my heart. It wasn't something I'd have expected from her usual reserved demeanor. Once each couple had made their choices, Jared and Kimberly guided us to the next step. Take small steps to make the wish you chose a reality. You can start here tonight. The lights dimmed slightly, and Kimberly added, "We've set up small spaces in the corners of the room. They aren't fully private, but they offer enough seclusion for you to take a new step together." Sophia and I exchanged hesitant glances. Her eyes reflected a mix of nervousness and curiosity. "What should we do?" she asked softly. Looking around, I noticed several cubicle-like spaces with curtains providing partial privacy. "If you want to," I said. Sophia took my hand, and with a slight nod, we moved toward one of the cubicles. Once inside, we pulled the curtain closed, muffling the outside noise. A small sofa and low table filled the cozy space. Sophia leaned in close and whispered, "Do you really not want to bore me?" "Of course not, you're everything to me," I replied. She whispered again, "Then I want to try here. But what if someone hears us beyond the curtain?" I hesitated for a moment, the atmosphere around us charged with a mix of tension and intimacy. Faint voices and muffled sounds from other corners of the room suggested that other couples were in similar situations. Suddenly, light seeped through a gap in the curtain, and someone approached from outside. Kimberly's voice cut through the stillness. "Are you enjoying yourselves? If you'd like to move on to a deeper level." I cautiously opened the curtain to see Kimberly standing there with Jared beside her, both wearing calm smiles. "What are you talking about?" I asked. Kimberly replied, "The true purpose of our workshop is to explore beyond the boundaries of marriage. Sometimes, experiencing something new with someone other than your partner can reveal your genuine desires." Startled, I quickly closed the curtain and turned to Sophia, who looked at me with confusion and surprise. "What did they say?" she asked. "Let's go home. Right now," I said firmly. Sophia nodded, and we left the semi-private space together. As we walked through the living room toward the exit, we saw other couples participating in various activities, some of which clearly involved swapping partners. Kimberly suddenly stepped in front of us, blocking the way. "Are you leaving already?" "We've just begun," she said. "This isn't what we want," I replied. Jared joined her and said, "Understood. But if you ever change your mind, you're always welcome to return." Many couples discover deeper bonds through this process. Sophia stepped forward and, with quiet determination, said, "We'll deepen our bond in our own way. Thank you for your kindness." With that, we left and returned to our apartment. Once inside, Sophia let out a deep sigh. "That was beyond what I imagined," she admitted. "Yeah, they really seem to be swapping partners," I replied. Sophia moved closer and hugged me tightly. To be honest, I was a little curious about what was happening there. But what I truly want is just you. New experiences might be important, but I want to find them with you." Her words brought a sense of relief and warmth. I embraced her and kissed her, feeling her presence soothe the unease that had lingered from the night's events. "I feel the same," I said. "You're all I see." That night, we stayed up for hours, talking about our relationship, what worked, what didn't, and how we could bring new excitement into our lives while staying true to each other. The next morning, I woke up to find Sophia standing by the window, gazing out. "Look," she said, "it seems like they're getting ready to move." I joined her at the window and saw a moving truck parked in front of the neighboring apartment. Kimberly and Jared were giving instructions as furniture and boxes were being loaded. "Are they moving out?" I wondered aloud. At that moment, Kimberly glanced up, caught sight of us, and gave a small wave with a warm smile. We instinctively waved back in return. Around noon, as we were coming back from the grocery store, we ran into Kimberly in the apartment lobby. She was carrying a small load by herself. "Oh, hello." "Hello. Are you moving? To the next city?" "Yes, that's right." "Where to, you ask?" Kimberly smiled. "That's a secret. But you two are truly a wonderful couple." "I really mean that." "Thank you. Take care, both of you." Kimberly paused, as if deep in thought, then pulled out a small envelope. "This is for you. Even if you forget us, hold on to the love that keeps you together." She handed over the envelope, gave a light farewell, and left. Back at home, we opened the envelope to find a single photograph and a short letter. The photo was from our first workshop, where the two of us had slightly awkward expressions. The letter read, "To Dominic and Sophia, our approach may have been a bit unconventional, perhaps even surprising at times, but it seems like you've rediscovered something you already had: love and respect for each other, and, most importantly, the courage to grow together. While we head to a new place, it's heartening to have witnessed a genuine partnership like yours. Sometimes, testing the boundaries of marriage can be a step toward reaffirming what truly matters. Be happy, Kimberly and Jared." I looked at Sophia. Tears shimmered in her eyes. They were strange people, but maybe they helped us change a little. Yeah, definitely. Looking out the window, I saw Kimberly and Jared climbing into the truck. They glanced up briefly and waved. We waved back in return. After the truck drove away, Sophia took my hand. "Shall we begin our new adventure?" "What kind of adventure?" Sophia smiled, a new light in her expression that hadn't been there before. "That's up to us." Half a year passed. New residents moved into the neighboring apartment, a quiet elderly couple with whom we occasionally exchanged polite greetings in the elevator. My relationship with Sophia had undoubtedly changed since that extraordinary incident. We became more open in expressing our feelings and no longer hesitated to create new experiences together. One night, we went out for the first time in a long while. After enjoying a meal at an elegant restaurant, Sophia said on the way home, "I thought I saw someone who looked like them at the mall earlier." "Them?" "Kimberly and Jared." "Yeah, really. But when I looked closer, it wasn't them. I wonder how they're doing now." "Who knows? Life sometimes takes unexpected turns, like a winding road with surprises around every corner." Sophia laughed. "Probably. But thanks to them, we were able to have a fresh start." "A fresh start?" Sophia wrapped her hand around my arm. "Yeah, if it weren't for them, we might have continued living the same old days, afraid of change." "That's true. Shall we try the suggestion in that envelope when we get home?" Sophia's eyes glimmered meaningfully. Last week, we had decided to write down our wishes and desires in envelopes and exchange them, one of the habits we adopted from Kimberly and Jared. However, we did it in our own way, avoiding their more extreme methods. "That sounds like a great idea." Looking up at the night sky, the stars sparkled beautifully. I held Sophia's hand tightly. Life sometimes takes unexpected turns. The special events in the neighboring apartment had tested our relationship, but ultimately strengthened it. Exploring the boundaries of marriage had led us to discover what truly mattered: deeply understanding and respecting each other, and, above all, growing together without fear of change. On the way home, Sophia suddenly stopped and looked up at me. "Hey, Dominic, if we were to move again, where would you want to go?" "Anywhere, as long as you're there." Sophia smiled contentedly and started walking again. Their steps were light and confident, as if every step toward the future marked the beginning of a new adventure. From afar, I thought I caught a glimpse of two figures under the streetlight. But when I looked closely, no one was there. It must have been my imagination. Leaning against my arm, Sophia whispered softly, "Thank you, Dominic, for never letting life become monotonous." I embraced her. "Always." And the two of us hurried back to our warm home, ready to greet a new morning, a new adventure, and, most of all, the new selves we had discovered in each other.